into you guys having 500 seats in worship. So, that affects restroom count, that affects children's restrooms, all that kind of stuff. And we can really kind of, during this live session process, get a good layout and a good plan where Chris can really go ahead and put some good budget numbers to it. We'll also have, as part of that, the renderings and everything that you'll be able to show your board and as well as the congregation. So I figured I'd do a quick presentation, kind of what's involved in that. Obviously, we've already, I've been down there, I've scanned the building. We've got a lot of that built out already in 3D, so that's pretty helpful. But let me share this presentation real quick and just kind of run through what we cover as part of this live session process. Typically, we like to get your team, probably you, children's minister, worship pastor, anybody else that's kind of real integral to the process as far as information of what they want, looking at common space, looking at cafe, anything we're going to touch, anybody on your staff that touches that stuff, you probably want them involved. But I kind of talked to Chase yesterday. We can do this process. We like to do it at our office. Obviously, that's 4-hour drive for you guys to Birmingham. We like to do it up here just because it's easy from staff. We've got a large room that's kind of been created for this purpose with a big projection screen, and seating for your team, everything. We can do it on site at the church as well. So just keep that in mind. If you guys don't want to travel to Birmingham, we can bring our team that way. Basically what the process is, obviously we've kind of skipped ahead with you guys a little bit by kind of the work we've done with Third Lands, looking at parking, looking at what we could do for an addition. But the first step's programming. We've got a spreadsheet that we would say, okay, we're going to do 500 seats in this building now. What do we need to increase the commons by? What's our restroom count need to increase to? What do our kids' classrooms need to increase to? And so we've got this spreadsheet that we've developed over the last 15, 20 years of working with 150 plus churches of kind of our best practices for each one of those rooms. And it also takes into account code. So we kind of work with you guys to develop that over a couple weeks. Then we have you up here. Probably for this size project, it would just be a 1-day session. We get you in the morning, kind of go through the project, and then for this amount of square footage, we could really get a lot done in 1 day. And once you kind of leave that day, we try to have a full floor plan laid out. And then we have a couple more meetings, to flesh out what the exterior looks like, make any changes you guys see on the floor plan. And then we kind of go into renderings and animation clips and everything that you'll be able to share with the church. And so that process is usually kind of overall 6 to 8 weeks. We can possibly do that quicker on this project just because our addition and everything's a little bit smaller than doing a whole new church. So that's kind of a quick overview. This is kind of the programming spreadsheet that we've got, and we're actually kind of tinkering with this a little bit on how you guys fill it out. But everything is based off of that worship seat count, kind of like we've talked about with parking. So kids' classrooms, obviously, you've got historical data from your team. So we can work with you to get that data into the spreadsheet and kind of see where you're at right now, how that extrapolates into 500 seat worship and how much square footage you'll need for each classroom and how many classrooms you guys need. Kind of once we have that info, we'll make these color blocks, and those would each represent something you need. Worship is typically the big green, kids' classrooms, offices, kind of whatever comes off that list. And then with you guys in the room, we sit here and rearrange these blocks. Obviously, you guys know the ministry the best. We know buildings. So we like to basically work together to plan out the building, getting your real live input during the design. And that kind of it helps us because it's a lot faster than the old architectural model. And if we go away and draw for a little bit and come back and ask if you like our picture or not, um, this allows you to really put your detail, see what works, what doesn't, and really fit the building to your ministry. So kind of coming out of the live session, we kind of like to have, a good floor plan. Like I said, over the next couple weeks after that, we start to develop that floor plan into 3D and eventually make it into the renderings. And then kind of as part of that proposal, we will include renderings and animations that you can use to not only, Chris can kind of look at it from a standpoint of what he thinks cost is for the materials and everything, but then you can also share it with your church and board members, like I said. And then obviously, we could do the full design down the road, but this is really kind of the first portion is the live session to get you kicked off. So from there, we can take the project through construction documents to where Chris could complete construction, get it permitted and everything. But really kind of what we're looking here is that initial live session just to make sure we've got exact square footages, heights you need, the design intent that you want, look and everything kind of gets established pretty quick using this live session process. And I can send you guys this info as well, just so that you kind of have that and can look through it. Call me with any questions as y'all have time to kind of think about that because I know it's a lot of info. And so we like to kind of be open and answer any questions.
Yep. Thanks, Matt. Ryan, does that sound like something that your group could possibly potentially want to do? And do y'all want to, if you did want to do it, would you want to ride up to Birmingham or have Matt come down?
I mean, I think either are a possibility. If we came up to Birmingham, I think some of that might be, for Matt, if you feel like, hey, you guys have more at your disposal there in your offices, you feel like it's a better process. I don't know if there's an advantage to doing it on site, given that for us, instead of us being, hey, we're building a new building, we've kind of made it through where, hey, this is kind of what we got, somewhat what we're working with. So there's a lot more defined parameters.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that actually makes it in some ways easier to be in person because you can just go look at a hallway that already exists or go map it outside if we need to, if there's something that's beneficial. We're certainly able to do either. I just didn't know if there's a strategic nature to being on site given the scope of ours and what we've already looked at.
I think, that scan I came and did back in, I think it was February, really kind of helps with that existing conditions that we're looking at because we can pull that scan up and walk through it anytime. And that happens a lot with when churches are in because start talking about something, we can go look at it, we can measure off of that. So that kind of helps us not have to be on site. The other thing with having you guys here is it's kind of a retreat for you guys. Sometimes when we're on site, and we've done it both ways, sometimes, people are running out to answer phone calls or, hey, I'm gonna schedule a meeting during this, like, let me step out. I think it just helps to have kind of that focus when you guys are here.
Okay. What now did I hear you say when you were giving your presentation that normally this is a 2-day process? Given ours, the scope of ours, did I hear you say it would probably just be a day process?
Probably just be one day to have you
Okay.
guys up here. It saves costs for one. it's less of our time, so saves on that. And then it's just, I think we could make it through a lot. Obviously, we've already kind of been working through a lot of stuff, so it's just going to be faster with you guys. The fact that we've already done a lot of groundwork up front, more than we would typically do with the church. So I think we can accomplish a lot in one day, and even possibly get into some 3D looks with you guys in the room and start getting feedback on that as well.
Is the in-person, is that typically the goal is to kind of get get the blueprint or kind of the floor plan nailed down by the end of that, and then some of the renderings and other stuff are down the line? That's the goal for the in-person meetup?
That's the goal. Obviously, if we're going to meet back up, y'all are going to leave here and think of changes that you want to make. 100% of the time, that's going to happen. So, we're going to have kind of a series of meetings, probably like we do already, and just kind of say, okay, was there anything you wanted to change on the plan? And then once the plan's totally settled, that's when we kind of start that 3D rendering process and everything. But like I said, we may even make it into looking at kind of what it's going to look like in elevation 3D while you guys are here.
Okay.
Just kind of depends on how fast we move.
And the goal is to try to get all this in within 6 weeks. Is that what I saw at the beginning? Okay.
Yeah. And we can possibly get that down even to 4 weeks or something. If y'all have got any kind of deadlines that you want to present something, we can work on schedule. That's just kind of typical.
Well, that's probably one thing with us doing a lot of this is a preliminary planning. We don't have a looming deadline, so.
Okay. No, that's good.
All right, good deal. Chris, I wanted to ask you, since you hopped on here with us, what would you like to see at the end of this process to help with putting together a pretty good budget for the church to look at? Is there something that you'd like to see more of so that you can put that together?
First of all, Chase, thanks for asking. But Matthew, I'm really impressed with you guys' process and even what you've already got. But just to if you guys go through the process you're talking about, and we got to where we had just some elevations, and we knew the requirements on the added seating and the added bathroom capacity and all that. I don't need everything to be able to try to get it close, but definitely need you guys to go further for me to give you more accurate pricing.
Yeah. Well, and I would even say, Ryan, Chris would be somebody to bring up as well if he can spare time. We always like to, if you've already got a contractor on board, like you do in this case, it's great to get feedback while we're designing, because he may know something to do that's more cost effective or something as well. So, or you can join in those meetings afterwards, Chris, and kind of give us feedback as we move along. But we're always open to that collaboration as well.
All right. I appreciate it. Keep me posted as you guys get closer to putting something on paper, and I'll definitely like to see if it work my schedule, but I definitely want to submit to what works best for the design team and the church.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that help. So moving forward, Ryan, I'll let y'all kind of think about that, kick around the idea with your team. But Lindsay or Ryan, have y'all seen anything from what has been presented with the plans that we currently have that just either will not work, or, is there something that we can be thinking about now that you have noticed?
And I found that there's a tiny switch for my camera at the very top of my computer. It's very hidden, so I apologize for that. I've been working for the.
Glad you found it.
Yeah, it's very small. I do have a few questions. So looking at the rendering now compared to one of the first ones that was done, I definitely like some of the additions that were made. My biggest, going off the very first one that I saw, which was several months ago, one of my biggest concerns was some type of large group space for the kids. So I see that that's been added up there. I don't know, like size-wise, what that looks like, because we definitely would need it to be the current size we have now. It works, but as far as expansion, it would need to be bigger than what we have now. Not necessarily double the size, but it just glancing at it, it looks about the same size. That doesn't really allow much room for growth. Like I said, for that room, I don't think it needs to be 2 times the size, but definitely there would need to be some type of adjustment to allow for more growth. We haven't outgrown that room yet, but planning ahead. But I'm glad to see that room was put in there. I don't think it originally was there. My other question was, just glancing at it, like the classrooms that you've added, the classroom size, like those look good size-wise. The girls and boys bathroom, is that just for kids, or I don't know where the other bathroom, are the other bathrooms remaining where they are? It's
Yeah,
hard to see.
we were trying to leave the existing where they
Okay,
are,
good.
just to save cost, and then kind of add on to the back of those to
Mhm.
create kind of a secure kids only bathroom.
Yes,
I mean, obviously they can be flexible, use regular
right.
size toilets and everything just in case
Yeah.
y'all are using
And-
that during the week for something else, but
mhm.
just for security reasons, typically we try to put
Yes.
that kids only.
That's definitely something I'm glad to see that as well, because having kid designated bathroom is something that is very important. I mean, if I'm just going to share like what I would love to see, granted, I also know this is not just um, so right now in the preschool side, we have one little kid's bathroom. It's connecting the two, it's in between the two classrooms. Ideally, I would love more of that, but inside the classrooms, because in those like 2-year-old classes, to have
Yeah,
to leave the classroom. So ideally, just like that bathroom, how it currently is, if just the doors were inside those classrooms,
yeah,
but if
just
we
kind of a
had that,
shared Jack and Jill.
but that situation in multiple sets of classrooms, because that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing right now is tiny kids that can't go to the bathroom by themselves. So I really would love to see that because that also helps in a place like a nursery. A lot of times you need a sink. So if
Yeah,
there's bathrooms connected, that helps with like being able to wash your hands. Now, not all the classrooms would need that, but definitely set up quite a few for those younger ages. Um, and granted, I also know that that may not be something we absolutely could do, but just from a security standpoint, I'm not having to have leaders leave out of the room to take kids to the bathroom. Um, so looking at to the place to the south of the worship area, like if you look where it says 500 seats, directly underneath it, that white space that used to be the large group room, and now it's just sort of opened. Is there any thoughts for what that would be, could be?
I think it's open. Let's
Okay.
see. Um, I think it's just something to think about over the
Mhm.
next couple of weeks, like what y'all need is a function for that
Right.
room. Like, is that I know kind of part of that design is to try to get all the kids' stuff up so that they're not
Mhm.
crossing back and forth across the lobby
Right.
and kind of keeping that secure corridor. But
Mhm.
then again, you've got these classrooms down there in that existing large group room. So I don't know if that becomes
Right.
part of the commons or if y'all want to keep that room for a multi-purpose room. So that those are all things we
Just
need to start thinking through.
right. Or even looking at that space could be split into 2 more rooms because right now we have about 7 classrooms right now. So
Mhm.
thinking of expanding, I mean, ideally you want to double it. Now 14 may be too much, but I think 13 is very realistic to ask for. Um, anyway, there's just 11 classrooms only gives us 4 additional classrooms. So I don't know if that's really helping us too much. Another thing that I would really love to see, and this is something we're working through right now, is some type of like cry room for babies. We're trying to set up, we just moved a class into a back room with a curtain because it really is a need for our church. Now, it doesn't need to be something huge. Honestly, something
Yeah.
like the size of the green room or even like the resource room, but some type of space we could dedicate to them. Like I said, we're trying to make that happen even within our space now. Um, so those are just things when I glance at it that are important to me. Bathrooms in the classrooms, any possible way, at least for some of them. Um, I do like how it is sort of a more secure kids area. We'd have to still work through that because you still have, well, never mind. But bathrooms, some type of cry room for moms and a large, making sure that the large room is going to be big enough that allows some growth. And like I said, I don't think we need it twice the size we currently have. And it may be, I can't really tell the measurements, but
Thank you, Lindsay.
Yeah, thank you guys. It's impressive what you guys can come up with, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and that's part of this is we'll start working through and make sure, that quantity of classrooms is correct. They're the correct size for the number of kids that you're going to have with 500 seats. So I think you're on the right track, and we'll definitely kind of get all those numbers nailed down before we kind of get to the next design step.
All right. Any additional comments or questions for Matt?
I think storage would be another thing that we need to consider looking into more. We're already running into that problem if we expand a lot more, and especially if we're adding more chairs, that could become a real issue. I know we're trying to do our best to be efficient with the spaces that we have, but
Well, I'm glad you mentioned storage. That always seems to pop up, and
Yeah.
sometimes it ends up popping up further into the design than you want it to. So,
And also from this, is there a kitchen space type area?
talking like a break room or something, or
Or, I mean, and right now, I mean, we have a refrigerator and, that's where like the coffee bar and stuff is.
Yeah, I think we'll try to leave some of that in at least close to that same area. Just, thinking cost wise, just probably have to figure out how it works with that new kids entry and addition and everything. So that's you're mostly talking about like the cafe and the room that's kind
Yeah,
of adjacent to the
yeah.
cafe there.
And not that, we're not doing full meals up here, but there definitely are events where the kitchen is utilized.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Storage is always a thing.
Storage and bathrooms are always the
Mhm.
two biggest requests for a church that's been living with too little of either one of them.
now how would that work with the current like kitchen cafe area? Because if I'm understanding the new auditorium correctly, it looks like we would chop that out.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing. Kind of trying to remember my initial thoughts a couple months ago when we did the drawing, but I don't know if that does shift towards that multi-purpose room. One thing to think about the cafe kind of space is think about it in the future. Like, would you want to make that something that you could kind of open separately from the rest of the church? Like if somebody want to have small groups up there, or even, even if you actually want to make it a functional cafe at some point, some of that is something to think through here over the next few weeks. And, that can depends on how big it needs to be and kind of the location around that new commons area that we'll need to locate it. I was thinking that corner, if we're adding on to the commons, that new corner that's kind of there adjacent to the road, if you put some nice windows or something in there, it kind of shows people activity, especially, during the winter when the days are a little shorter and you got more lights on and stuff. It shows people that, people are in here, shows them that the church is being used, it's open. And so that's just something to think about, kind of how that cafe functions. And typically the cafe and kind of what you're talking about, Lindsay, with the warming kitchen and support space that kind of moves around the building together.
So while we're, like I said, I'm just throwing these things out there. I do like some things that you said, because if we had like a dream church, you just come in and build whatever you want. A lot of issues that we have currently is small groups, and they're too big and no one wants to host. And so I've always thought the idea but that meeting of the church seems so sterile and not like personable. But there was a space that was inviting to where a small group could meet and still felt like you weren't just sitting around a plastic table.
Yeah.
So I like those things. Not that those are necessarily priorities, but
Yeah, so these are all, I've been kind of writing everything down, but these are all great kind of wish list items to start thinking about.
Well, it sounds like we'll kind of, I guess, start to try to, I don't know if we'll correspond mainly with you, Matt, or through Chase or how, but trying to kind of nail down a little bit of a calendar. Because I know a lot of these things you'll start doing like it's I think in person, right? You know, where like let's move this here, let's move that there, let's check here,
Yeah.
we can get a extra connect space in here. So for a lot of that, it sounds like we'll have to kind of get on your calendar and see when we can set up time to get up there. The
Yeah.
more or less kind of the next step as far as like design, or is there prior meetings? Or is it more or less, hey, let's get the paperwork done, let's get you set up to come down here, and that'll be the next time we really start working on tweaks on the design?
I think that'll be the next time. Really, the main focus will be this kind of programming spreadsheet where we're figuring out how many classrooms are needed, and then, how big what you guys want as far as the cafe goes and support spaces, how much storage is needed. So that'll be kind of the first step, and then really we'll start designing with you guys in the room when we kind of have that actual live session. So you're correct on that. So we'll probably early next week get a proposal to you and Chase and kind of let y'all look through that, and then we'll kind of get something scheduled from there.
Okay.
Hey, Ryan, I think one more thing for us to consider, and some of that is student spaces. Just from my experience back in student ministry, if we expand the auditorium to be, 500 seats, that's going to be a massive space that the students really don't need, especially if we upgrade and update some of the equipment too. Like that's just going to be overkill for even 100-person student ministry. So what does it potentially look like for us to, as Lindsay was talking about, that multi-purpose room, do we create almost like a second smaller auditorium that is used as that multi-purpose room, but it can also be used as the student space on Wednesday nights? I'm not saying they can't use the auditorium. That's just, it's just a thought.
Yeah, we'll start writing down some of the things that you have, and I think that'll be where it sounds like as we start to kind of, as they give us the paperwork, we'll start processing through those, putting some of those things down. And then it sounds like when we kind of are able to set a time up to meet with Matt, then they'll start really trying to nail all that down.
Cool.
All right. Well, let's shoot for that. Matt, if you can get that proposal out to us along
Will
with
do.
that programming file, that would be great. And then Ryan, if you and your team can start looking, maybe 2 weeks from now at your calendars and see kind of what dates might work out best for all of you, for either your travel up or Matt's travel down. And Matt, I guess in your proposal, if you need to give us 2 numbers on.
Yeah, we'll just give something to cover our travel if we're doing that. That way you guys can take a look at it.
Okay, that'd be perfect. Well, thank y'all. Thank you all for being a part of this meeting. Chris, thank you for hopping on and giving us some feedback, and we greatly appreciate everybody's effort here.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right.
Well, y'all all have a good evening, and we'll be in touch.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
thanks.
Thanks.